My name is Wolf Traverso. You'll see that AU after my name. That is my allegiance to the autistic community that I align myself with. I am going to state right now, on this date, that I, as a member of that autistic community, declare sovereignty and independence for the cultural nation of Autistic Gold. I hope other autistic people will join me in this very simple message to the non-autistic community. This isn't a statement of aggression. This isn't a statement of conflict. This is a statement of, as I mentioned, independence and sovereignty. Look up sovereignty. Autistic people, our community, our cultural nation, no longer will adhere, acknowledge, or bow to the perceived authority of the non-autistic cultural rules. Your rules don't apply to us. It's time to come to the table together as diplomats and learn about each other. And I will tell you that for me personally, I've done a lot of thinking about what kind of advocate I want to be. Call me a mixture of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, the Black Panthers, and every angry mother who has seen her child or other children in her community get destroyed by a system that is seeking to oppress and claim authority over our culture and our nation. Again, I'm Wolf Traverso, autistic. I declare that I am a member of the Autistic Gold Nation. I declare my own personal sovereignty and independence over the non-autistic community. I think that the culture of the autistic community is unified and different, but easy enough to communicate that we, as I said, can diplomatically come to the table together, and it's time for you guys to make room for us. This has gone too far. The laws non-autistic laws oppress us. Your societal rules oppress us. They create depression, suicide, murder. I'm done. I'm an angry mother. So far, most of the injustice that I have experienced has been against me. I'm a big girl and I can take it, but it's gonna get my kids someday, and I'm not gonna let that happen. So, to my non-autistic fellow man or woman or whatever, we are our own culture, and we may not have an economic structure. We may not even have land. I suspect that this difference in culture goes back so far. You guys have taken all our land, and we have bowed to your social rules for probably thousands of years, not knowing that we had a right to our own, because the gaslighting over thousands of years likely is that we're wrong, that our culture and our norms and our language is abnormal. It is needs to be medicalized. It needs to be treated. It needs to be cured. It needs to have therapy to fix it. I'm really trying hard not to swear. I'm done with it. You guys are wrong. Make space for us. Listen to us. Nothing about us without us. Stop hurting my kids. Stop hurting other autistic kids. Stop oppressing me. I challenge the leaders of the non-autistic community to start reaching out to the leaders of the Autistic Gold Cultural Nation and respect us as independent and sovereign. We add value to your economics. We add value to your culture. Our minds have created ideas that have forwarded what you have claimed to be the milestones of your own society, when in reality, many of those wins, many of those milestones, you owe to autistic minds. We were just too gullible to see that we were being exploited, that the gold of being autistic has been mined by the non-autistic community. I'm gold. My mind is gold. My son, his mind is gold. The other autistic people I know, they're beautiful. We do things, we think things, we see things that the non-autistic world just can't do. And I know that a lot of people say, well, you need to be medicalized because you're disabled. You guys can't hang it in society. I'm going to swear right here. Bullshit. The assumptions that the non-autistic cultural rules and authority, that we have to adhere to those, that assumption has created a system, a social system that sets us up for failure every time we leave our house. You can point to all the children that struggle at school and why they need an IEP, or they need medication, or they can't hang, or yeah, they should have been arrested because they had a meltdown and hit someone. Your system is flawed. Your system has us in a form of cultural, emotional slavery that so many of us just haven't seen. There are parents out there that don't see that this system is hurting their children. The doctors are wrong. Your child is not disordered. Your child is not a tragedy. Your child does not need to be cured. Your child needs to be seen as a citizen of my nation, the Autistic Gold Nation. All the adult autistic people that have spent so much time working to articulate how our culture is different. We can't see each other, and you can't see us by the color of our skin. All you see is those moments where we've tried so hard to meet your rules and to bow, like I said, to the oppression and assumed authority that your cultural rules have put on us, and we break. And when we break, the doctors are right there to say that person has a problem, that's a disorder, we need to cure that. Don't do gene therapy to get rid of autism. You will destroy humankind. Modern humans, non-autistic humans, you guys need the Autistic Gold community. Quite frankly, we need each other. But so far, that feeling of needing each other, again, it's a system that has gaslit the autistic community. We take things at face value. We're literal. I feel that as a culture, we've been gullible. We have assumed that we do need you because you have created a system, knowingly or not, that puts us in a position of discomfort, stress, depression, anxiety. I hope that the Autistic Gold community shares this as far as possible. I know that people are hearing a tone of anger and aggression in my voice. Yeah. Because right now I have a neighbor harassing me, specifically targeting things that person knows I do to help my autistic self, and I do to help my autistic sons. This is a person who knows that during an autistic meltdown, I was arrested because police officers, following their non-autistic definitions of what guilt looks like, assumed I was guilty based on observable bodily behaviors, which, if there was time for diplomacy and understanding autistics, they might have had an informed view of assuming or of acknowledging the space that it might not have been about guilt, and it might have been about what I said to them that night, which was, "Officer, I'm going into a meltdown. I need you to slow down." I was shifting, not making eye contact. When I got diagnosed and I entered this community, I've heard these stories. I read these stories, and it really took me a while to to see what I see now. I'm a successful person. I have a sales job. I'm an autistic person who makes a living, I guess, socially, talking to people. I'm not really that social. I'm pretty straightforward. I'm good at sales because I learned a systematized way to sell. That worked for me as an autistic person. I make pretty good money. I own my house. I'm, for all intents and purposes, I look to be an American success story. My parents didn't pay for my college. I got kicked out when I was a teenager. I did this. I built this by myself. And yet, I experienced an incredibly traumatic arrest, unknowing discrimination against against me by my local authorities. And that ignorant discrimination, that subversive, ignorant, undiscussed discrimination is going to happen again and again and again and again until non-autistics are ready to sit down and listen to us. It's diplomacy time, folks. That's what time it is. Sometimes it ends in an arrest. Sometimes it ends in a 13-year-old boy getting shot. Go Google that. 13-year-old boy shot when his mother called authorities to ask for de-escalation services. She didn't ask for police. De-escalation services. And this autistic child was terrified when the police showed up. I'm 44 and I know that fear. And he was shot. Autistic children are murdered sometimes by their own parents because your system, your medicalization, your oppressive authority over culture and cultural rules has made a snake pit for parents to assume that their child is a failure, that their child is disordered, that their child is always going to be a burden, that their child doesn't matter. And then you have the parents kill their kid. You have 5-year-old kids getting thrown in cop cars. There's a child in Placerville, California, put into a restraint hold, died during that restraint hold. You can look through my videos. I have wept the deepest tears for our community. The Autistic Gold Nation. I declare independence. I declare sovereignty over our culture and our social norms. And it's about time you guys learn, because we are in your workforce. We are producing ideas for you. We are out there. You guys need us. And I sure hope that the rest of the autistic community, I know that this message is going to resonate with Autistic Gold people. I hope it serves as a rallying point. I declare my citizenship to the nation of Autistic Gold. That's it. That's period. That's it. We are independent and we are sovereign. When there's a voice big enough with this message, I bet you guys are going to start to listen. And then, hopefully, we'll elect some leaders. On our own, in our way, in our virtual national way. We will come up with our own representation. And then we can go sit down with the leaders of the United States, the United Kingdom, etc., etc. Because what's beautiful about the nation of Autistic Gold is that we don't know color lines. We don't know gender lines. We don't know geographical lines. The diversity of our brain being different from non-autistics, from what I have learned and my understanding of evolutionary anthropology, which I've studied on my own pretty intently, this variation has gone back thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years. Somehow, non-autistics got the upper hand. But it didn't get rid of us, because you guys need us. We're all over the place. Every country, every nation, every company, I would assert, every position. There's probably 50%, if not more, of our nation walking in your walls, doing work, and not even knowing that they're citizens of this nation. I didn't know I was until I was 40, and then everything made sense. Medical community of the non-autistic community, you do not own the identity of being autistic. You do not get to medicalize it to the point that it's in your DSM-5. You took homosexuality out of the DSM-5 and stopped treating it like a disorder. Now's our turn. You took identifying as trans out of the DSM-5. Now is our turn. It has so been past our turn. I can't even articulate how long this has been going on. In my mind, I can see, I am a visual thinker. What I am seeing is thousands of movie screens right now in various places with various characters in various places and times and situations where just another citizen of the Autistic Gold Nation is sitting there flabbergasted in a room of non-autistics who is probably laughing at them. And the non-autistic person, who part of our culture is very authentic and straightforward language, that autistic person, you guys don't make any sense to us sometimes. The lack of directness, and then the subversive humor and bullying. And sometimes we don't even know we're being bullied until hours or days later, when it takes us a minute to realize, hey, that didn't feel very good. Why do I feel upset about that? And then you get kids, teenagers, experiencing intense depression to the point that they want to die. I challenge you, any of you who are non-autistics, go look up the statistics of employment in the autistic community. Go look up the statistics of suicide in the Autistic Gold community. Go look up the statistics of suicidal thoughts for teenagers in the Autistic Gold community. Go look up the life expectancy for the people of our nation. And take a look at it. And then re-listen to what I'm saying. I'm a fairly articulate person. Your system has held us down in the bounds of an invisible oppression and slavery, because part of our culture is to assume that things are what they appear or what we have been told they are. Unbeknownst to us, until this culmination of our virtual unification. I think it took the internet for us to really come together. We're getting it, and we're seeing the gaslighting, whether you guys made it or not. Your cultural rules, I am not bound by them. I follow the rules, the cultural, societal agreements of the Autistic Gold Nation. Fellow members of the Autistic Gold community, do you see the fire? Do you hear the fire? We've been talking about this. I know a lot of autistic leaders have been talking about how are we going to change things. And I've only been in the leadership community, I guess 3 or 4 years. And much like Martin Luther King said, enough talk, we got to go do something. And I was just watching it last night. I guess he made this speech and this declaration in a parish and said, who's willing to go out there and protest tomorrow and get arrested? You know who stood up, according to the documentary I was watching, and said that they would? Kids. Black kids. And they did. And they got arrested. And if I remember correctly, they got the hoses turned on them. And then they got the dogs turned on them. I love the autistic children's community too much to ever ask them to go and do that work. We, as autistic adults, owe it to them to protect them, to embrace them into our cultural nation, to educate them on our culture's norms, how our language works, so that they don't feel alone and they can advocate for themselves. We owe it to autistic children to educate their non-autistic parents. Hey, your kid is a part of my nation. They're one of me. And you don't know our language. You're learning it from non-autistic doctors and therapists and ABA people. Let me educate you on our culture. Let me give you some ideas on how to communicate with your kid, because you're completely ignoring your kid's language and culture. And your kid is too young to understand it or advocate them for themselves. And if we don't do this, autistic adults, that kid, all those kids out there are going to fall into the same gaslighting pit and get ABA'd straight into looking normal and masking. And then how many of them are going to put a gun to their head? How many of them are going to want to die? How many of them are going to lose their shit in some situation where they've grossly violated non-autistic laws or societal norms or whatever and get thrown in the back of a cop car and traumatized? Our whole culture is traumatized. The prevalence of PTSD with an autistic diagnosis, I'm not going to use that word anymore, diagnosis. The prevalence of PTSD and abuse experience with those in this nation, the Autistic Gold Nation, is so flippin' high because there is no place that we can go and be quickly and easily with our kin. The violence and the abhorrence that has been done against the Black community. I'm from the Bay Area, so, we learned about all that stuff when I was a kid. And it's abhorrent. I learned about the slave trade ships, the conditions, the disgustingness of assumed slavery being passed down through lineage. It's abhorrent. And this is not a competition, but I will say, when you're being targeted by a visual aspect, the one thing you have is to be able to identify others with that same visual aspect. So, like I said, I'm from the Bay Area. I'm used to seeing lots of different colors of skin. I'm used to sometimes being the only white kid on the bus. That was the norm. That is the norm. That's how it should be. And then I move up here to Washougal, Washington. Oh my God, it is so white. It kind of freaks me out. Like, I almost want to go hug a Black person when I see him up here. The point is that I can see when a Black person is Black, and I can only imagine what their life has been like with how easy that is to identify. Because color of your skin makes you a target right away, right? Can't hide it. Can't. You are at the mercy of the biological variants that essentially made your ancestors not need sunscreen, and get plenty of vitamin D. That isn't political racism. Racism is real. Black Lives Matter. The biological variation that defines the Autistic Gold community, it's in here. I can't walk around my city. I do see autistic kids and people around my city because I know how to spot our culture. But it's not as easy, which means that me as an adult and all those autistic kids being gaslit by a non-autistic culture and set of social norms and laws, all those kids feel isolated and alone. They don't get to move into a new neighborhood or go to a new school and go, oh my God, there's someone else like me. They don't get to have that moment. They don't. Hundreds of thousands of years. There's some evidence that shows that aspects of Neanderthal culture fit autistic norms. Seems that they lived in smaller groups, kind of stuck to themselves, were very welcoming and open with Homo sapiens when they met them. Were very smart, persistent, had the gift of language, had the ability to speak in language. And I was watching a lot of documentaries about Neanderthals versus Homo sapiens. One of the persons who was speaking joked that if it weren't for Neanderthals, Homo sapiens would still be standing in a cave right now, shooting the shit about the, antelope they caught last night. You guys need us. You've needed us. You've used us. You've had us. You've mined the gold. And the gold is standing up and saying, nope. Now we're going to have communication. I didn't mean this to be so long. I will continue to spout this rhetoric in different sized pieces, small pieces, short pieces. My name is Wolf Traverso. I am a autistic adult. I am a member, a citizen of the Autistic Gold Nation. My son is 8. He is a member, a citizen of the Autistic Gold Nation. And as a citizen of that nation, I declare that the Autistic Gold Nation is independent and sovereign culturally from the non-autistic nation. Let the diplomacy begin.